My name is Daniel Reyes. I'm 36 years old, born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I run a small HVAC company that I built from ground up. Just me, a couple of trucks, and a crew I trust like brothers. I'm not flashy. Don't wear jewelry. Don't post my life online. I've been wearing the same work boots for 2 years and drive a truck that's more tool shed than luxury vehicle. But I take care of what's mine. And what used to be mine included a woman named Veronica. When we first met, she was working at a diner just off Route 67, south of Oak Cliff. She had this smile that hit me like heat on concrete. I was fresh off a job, covered in fiberglass dust, and she still looked me in the eye like I was someone. That meant something to me. A few weeks later, we were seeing each other regularly. A year in, we were married. Back then, she appreciated the little things. A drive out to Grapevine Lake. Tacos in the front seat while watching the sunset. I wasn't rich, but I was solid. I always paid the bills on time, never skipped out on responsibilities. And she used to admire that, used to tell people, my man works harder than anyone I know. But over time, admiration turned into expectation. It started slow. She wanted a nicer car. Nothing wrong with that. So, I bought her a new Camry, paid in full. Then came designer bags, upgraded furniture, salon trips every other week. Again, I didn't say no. I never liked holding money over anyone's head, especially not my wife's. But then it became normal to her. She stopped saying thank you, stopped asking, just started telling me what she needed, like I was some kind of personal ATM. I noticed she wasn't cooking as much. Said she was too tired. But tired from what? She didn't work anymore. She wasn't going to school. She spent most of her days meeting up with her friends, ladies who looked like they were on Real Housewives, but lived in apartments their boyfriends paid for. Girls who laughed at blue-collar men like me. But I kept quiet. I figured maybe she'd come back around. Then came that day in Fort Worth. My cousin Raul was having a barbecue for his kid's birthday. All my people were there. Cousins, uncles, family friends. We drove out that morning. Veronica was in full makeup, tight jeans, heels way too tall for backyard. She barely spoke to anyone when we arrived. Just sat there scrolling her phone, texting, sipping on White Claw. I was inside the garage, helping Raul set up the cooler when she walked up behind me and said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "Hey, babe, I need $2,500 for that spa trip next weekend. Remember? Me and the girls." I turned to her, confused. That was the first I'd heard about it. So I said calmly, "That's a lot of money, Veronica. And we didn't talk about this. Can we discuss it later, in private?" She crossed her arms and laughed. "Wow, are you serious right now?" I felt the energy shift. Everyone around us went quiet. A few people looked away, pretending not to hear. But the moment had already cracked open. "You really gonna act broke in front of your own family?" she snapped. "I swear, sometimes you're such a cheap bastard." Those were her words. Word for word. It wasn't even what she said that hit me hardest. It was how she said it. Like I was beneath her. Like the man who paid for a car, her nails, her clothes, her roof, was somehow a joke now. I didn't argue. I didn't react. I just nodded once, like I just heard the final piece of evidence I needed in a case I hadn't realized I was building. The party continued, but I wasn't there anymore. Not mentally. I shook hands, smiled politely, answered a few questions. But inside, something had shifted. It wasn't rage. It was clarity. For the longest time, I'd been giving and giving, thinking I was being a good husband, thinking that patience, silence, and generosity would eventually be returned with respect. But respect can be bought. And I had just seen, with my own eyes, what she really thought of me. That I was just a source. That my effort didn't matter unless it came with a blank check attached. We left that barbecue around 7:30 p.m. The sun was setting over I-30 as we crossed the bridge back into Dallas. She sat in the passenger seat, arms folded, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Not a word of apology. Not even a glance in my direction. That's when I realized I'd been negotiating with someone who thought love was just a transaction. And that night, driving home in silence, I made a decision. Not out of anger. Not to get even. But because real men don't tolerate disrespect dressed up as attitude. And once a man sees through it, there's no going back. The highway was quiet. Just the hum of my truck tires rolling over the pavement and the occasional rattle of the toolbox in the back. We were driving down I-30 toward Dallas, and the sun was dipping low behind the skyline. A golden haze covered the road, but inside the truck, everything felt cold. She hadn't said a word since we got in the vehicle. Not one apology. Not one sorry for what I said. Just silence, and not the kind of silence that brings peace. It was heavy, tense, and full of entitlement. She was scrolling through her phone, texting God knows who, her perfectly manicured nails tapping away like nothing had just gone down in front of my entire family. Every few minutes, I glanced over at her, not because I wanted to start anything, but because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. A woman who had just called me a cheap bastard in front of my mother, my cousins, and my childhood friends was now pretending like nothing had happened. Like it was just another casual Thursday evening. I wasn't mad. Not in the way most people think. I wasn't gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles or fantasizing about yelling at her. I wasn't even playing back the insult in my head. No, what I felt was something deeper. Something final. It was clarity. I kept thinking about how long I'd let things slide. The way she had slowly stopped showing appreciation. How thank you became you should, and I love you turned into you never. I kept thinking about the little comments she made in the past few months, like when I came home dirty from an AC job and she said, "Don't sit on the couch like that. You smell like outside." Or when I picked her up from the nail salon and she rolled her eyes because I didn't bring iced coffee with oat milk like she told me. None of those things exploded into fights. I always let them go. I told myself she was just stressed, that it wasn't that serious, that I should keep being patient because I'm a man, and that's what men do, carry the weight without complaint. But now, after being humiliated in front of my family, after seeing the smirk on her face while she did it, I knew that patience wasn't strength anymore. It was submission, and I was done submitting to someone who didn't respect me. We passed the Dallas Zoo exit. Still nothing. I glanced over again. She was on Instagram, laughing at something on her feed. So I spoke. "You embarrassed me today." She looked up from her phone, like I'd interrupted her favorite show. "What?" I kept my eyes on the road. "What you said. The way you said it. That wasn't frustration, Veronica. That was disrespect." She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God. Are you really going to act like a victim now?" I didn't say anything. I just kept driving. She kept going. "I was just annoyed, Daniel. You don't have to act like I stabbed you in the back. I wanted to go on a trip with my friends, and you made me look dumb in front of everyone." That's when I realized she truly believed that. She thought I embarrassed her by saying no to giving her $2,500 for a spa weekend she never discussed with me. And now I was supposed to be the one apologizing. That's when I stopped responding altogether. We hit the downtown curve. The skyline lit up in the distance. She crossed her arms and sank into the passenger seat like a teenager pouting about curfew. "You always do this," she mumbled. I looked at her briefly. "Do what?" "This whole stoic, silent, cold thing. You act like you're some perfect man, and I'm the crazy one." I nodded slowly, eyes back on the road. "I act like a man who doesn't scream in front of his family. That's all." She didn't answer that. The silence lasted the rest of the ride. When we pulled into our driveway in Oak Cliff, she reached into the center console for the garage opener. I put the truck in park and said, "Leave it. I'll get it." She leaned back in her seat, clearly annoyed now. "So what now? Are you going to ice me out all weekend?" I turned the truck off, grabbed my phone, and looked her dead in the eye. "No," I said. "I'm going to start thinking clearly." She scoffed. "Whatever that means." I got out and closed the door behind me. Inside the house, I didn't wait for her. I didn't pull her chair out. I didn't offer to warm up food or ask how she was feeling. I went to the guest room, where I hadn't slept in years, and lay down with my boots still on. Not because I was angry, but because I was detaching. It's strange when it happens. You don't always notice it right away, but it's like a switch. One moment you're holding on for the sake of the memories, the promises, the photos on the wall. And then the switch flips, and you stop holding on. You stop hoping. You stop being afraid of the consequences of walking away. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I didn't vent to my boys. I just sat in that quiet room, staring at the ceiling fan, running through every single moment I had overlooked. Every sign, every insult, every transaction that felt more like a withdrawal than love. I was a man who built everything he had with his own two hands. I didn't come from money. I didn't have investors or family businesses. I worked on roofs in 100-degree heat at 19, got burned on refrigerant coils at 25, and spent years fixing broken units in houses I couldn't afford to live in. And now I was being cursed at by the woman who used to cry tears of gratitude the first time I paid for her books in college. People change. I get that. But the moment someone thinks your love is a transaction and your effort is owed, not appreciated, you're no longer in a marriage. You're in a contract with no respect clause. That night, I didn't sleep next to her, and I already knew I would never again. The next morning, I woke up before the sun, like I always do. Even after a night like that, some habits stick with you. I brewed my coffee in silence. No music, no news on the TV. I didn't check my phone, didn't peek to see if she was awake in our bedroom. I just sat there in the kitchen, staring at the steam rising from the mug, and ran through every step I had to take. I had never thought about divorce. Not seriously. I grew up in a house where people stayed married, even when they were miserable. My old man used to say, "Don't quit on your wife. A man don't run from his household." And I believe that deeply. But what happens when the one you committed to turns the house into a war zone with no bullets, just silence, neglect, and public humiliation? What happens when the woman who once admired your hard work now spits on it like it's not enough? You don't run from that. You just stop standing in it. That morning, I didn't cry. I didn't write a dramatic letter or make some big speech about how I was hurt. I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and drove to my lawyer's office. His name's Calvin Torres. Been my friend since high school. He helped me set up my business LLC when I got serious a few years ago. As soon as I sat down across from his desk, he looked up from his laptop and said, "What happened?" I just said, "I need to start the divorce process." He didn't ask twice. We spent the next hour going through assets, accounts, titles, insurance policies. I'd already kept most things under my name. She never showed much interest in legal stuff, and I never insisted. That worked in my favor now. The house was mine, the business mine, all vehicles under my name. She had access to the accounts, but she wasn't tied to them. When Calvin asked if I wanted to go the aggressive route, I said no. She's not the enemy, I told him, but she's not my partner anymore either. By the time I got home, Veronica was awake. She was sitting on the couch in shorts and a hoodie, hair tied up, scrolling her phone, still acting like the world hadn't shifted the night before. She looked up at me, half smiling. "Hey," she said casually, "you went to gym?" "No," I replied, walking past her. She didn't follow me. That day, I started putting things into motion. I changed the passwords on all joint accounts. I froze her credit card and transferred the business checking account to a secure trust under my name only. I rerouted my payroll and changed the pins on every card. No drama, just business. She noticed that night when she tried to order dinner and her card got declined. "Daniel," she said, walking into the kitchen, "why isn't my card working?" I was cutting steak at the counter. "It's disabled," I said calmly. Her eyebrows shot up. "What the hell do you mean disabled? I have things to pay for." "Not anymore," I said. "You'll need to use your own money for that." She scoffed. "Are you serious right now? Over one little argument?" I set the knife down, looked her in the eye. It wasn't one argument. It was years of disrespect building up to you cursing me out in front of my family. You don't get to do that and come back to a funded lifestyle. She laughed. "Wow, so now you're going to act like a dictator? This is what you think manhood is?" "No," I replied. "Manhood is providing, protecting, and leading. But it's also knowing when the woman beside you isn't standing with you anymore, and stepping away with dignity." She went quiet. "You're not going to win in court," she said sharply. "I'll tell them you were controlling, that you financially abused me." "You can tell them whatever you want," I said, "but the receipts say otherwise." The next morning, she was served with divorce papers. That's when the mask dropped. The tough girl act vanished. The cold tone melted into panic. She called me 6 times in 2 hours. Sent messages, left voicemails. I didn't block her. I wanted her to feel what it's like when a man who always showed up suddenly stops answering. She came home early from her friend's place the next day. I was in the garage organizing tools. "Can we talk?" she said from the doorway. I kept working. She walked closer. "Look, I'm sorry, okay? I overreacted. I was just mad and—" "You weren't just mad." I cut in. "You were comfortable. Too comfortable thinking I'd keep tolerating it." She blinked. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I set the tool down and looked her straight in the face. "You didn't hurt me, Veronica. You embarrassed yourself. I was loyal, present, and consistent. And you treated me like a chore. Now I'm treating you like a choice." Her lip trembled. She reached out, like maybe a hug could erase the weight of what she'd done. I stepped back. It's done, I said. You can stay here for another 2 weeks. After that, you'll need to find your own place. She nodded, slowly. Is there really no way to fix this? I shook my head. You had a husband. You chose an audience instead. The following days were awkward, quiet, but this time the silence was on her end. No more attitude, no more sarcasm, just the sound of someone realizing that comfort is fragile and a man's love has limits. Eventually, she moved out, left a few boxes behind, a picture frame, a robe, a bottle of perfume that used to drive me crazy but now made me sick. I donated it all. Today, my house is quiet, but not the uncomfortable kind. It's peaceful. My mornings are still early, my coffee's still black, and my truck still rattles over the same roads. But now, when I come home, I'm not walking into a place where I'm silently disrespected. I'm walking into something I built, with my own hands and heart. And for once, that's enough. Because when a man stops explaining himself, he's already gone.